I'm trying something new. Here are a few mini theories and observations about Amphoreus based on readable material. Let's keep this snappy. Full spoilers for the 3.0 Trailblaze mission. So how does time travel work? The world in Orynyx's eye says it doesn't and explains what Janus and Orynyx actually do. First, the priests of Janus do not actually change the past, but they select a background or a state in which something exists. In other words, what the Titans help us to change is reality and not what has already happened in the past. For example, say you wanted Janus to give you an ice cream. Janus would put an ice cream in your hand and take money out of your pocket to pretend you'd bought one, instead of changing history to make it happen. You've heard other theorists say enigmata as a third path on Amphoreus, and this may be another hint to that. Genshin fans will also recognize this as Irminsul tampering. Second, regarding Orynyx, there is no way for them to predict exceedingly uncertain matters. In other words, what Orynyx chooses to show us are parables that they are certain must have happened or absolutely will occur. We simply allow them to focus on searching for knowledge regarding the past and future. In other words, Orynyx can't see the past and future, they calculate them based on available information and will only announce predictions they have absolute certainty in. This sounds like what Nous does, but this is also how Black Swan's fortune telling works. Considering most sources say Mythos was born from remembrance, it makes sense that the author says the Titan's powers are similar. However, Orynyx's path could be either. All three mentioned involve information. Remembrance collects it, enigmata distorts it, and erudition uses it to calculate new information. They're almost like a set. You could argue them trying to catch Foolie's gaze as either them wanting their own eon for help or wanting help from a path that isn't their own. The explanation of Amphoreus' calendar explains Mnestia's information gathering works by weaving everything together into golden threads of memory, another reference to remembrance. I suspect the Titans are all emanators of one of the paths on the planet, but keep in mind emanators vary in strength, from Lord Ravagers to non-sentient worms, so why can't some be gods in their own right? Anecdotes of Numerophile explains the teachings of a non-Titan religion which claims all 12 are controlled by a machine with divinity. Taken at face value, this is a clear reference to Nous. We know a strong erudition presence is here. Considering the Titans have Aeon-esque powers, I suspect Amphoreus is a planet-sized simulated universe Nous is studying to understand the rest of the universe, because Amphoreus is almost certainly a simulation. The Black Tide is just glitched environments that also glitch the in-game map, and the nymphs, created by Titans, leave emoticons behind when found. At least I assume it's Nous, since Herta's a genius and only has the SU. At the end of the text, the author warns one type of numerophile makes the Black Tide worse by not worshipping the Titans. It's possible a lack of faith really can make things worse, but this isn't the only book whose author overreacts to alternate fate, so there's that. Similar to the Abyss in Tivat, Who Wins the Last War suggests the Black Tide is sentient, for it knows to hit weak points. The tide is corrosive, but also spawns monsters as it grows. Defeating them quickly can close a forming rift. This might be false. After all, you can find stagnant rifts in the overworld that don't change until you hit a Kefali ward nearby. Nor do they spawn monsters, though spawn may include corrupting other beings into doing its bidding. This is also similar to how hollows work in ZZZ, though it isn't officially part of the Hoyoverse yet. The Destiny Weaver's missives lends more evidence to enigmata being the third path. The written versions of Orynyx and Janus' prophecies have been altered, and it's implied even the Flame Chase prophecy was too. I want to focus on two specific points. First, something to the Era Chrysia, the Golden Age, was changed to returning. Given the simulation implications, I think the original word was rebooting. This being such a small change worries the writers, and I think that precision is a sign of an enigmata expert. In other words, an emanator or eon. Second, records on a specific subject are vanishing. Not altered, literally fading from view. This one you could attribute to Nous if they're overseeing everything though. Either way, the Fate Titans seem aware of this manipulation, and this is hinted to be another reason they've stopped giving prophecies. The topic may be simulation related or about a person. Cyrene or Adis Elysiae, perhaps? Anyway, the letter explaining the above also warns that the era promised by the prophecies will be a lot different from what people expect. Perhaps Amphoreus rebooting will change everything, not just remove the tide. Finally, the document ends with prophecy fragments. The first claims something will happen once the Fate Titans are out of commission. Talenton and Janus are already dead, and Orynyx falls asleep during 3.0 with Mem and Fully appearing immediately afterwards. Perhaps that's what this means. The second implies seeking the core flames as a trap, as Orynyx implied, and the third suggests this world ending is actually a good thing, though the cost is likely everyone dying or whatever risks come from a matrix reset, as suggested above. The last big readable is a Golden Scapegoats Muttering series from those collectibles. They tell the story of a scapegoat, someone with everyone else's sins pinned on them so they can die and the others feel better about themselves. There's a pretty famous version of this in our world. That's right, fight Fate's Angra Mayu. They go mad and are ultimately revealed to be Nikador themselves, with the story ending either when they gave up their reason or had their other concepts removed, similar to Tesserant at the end of Swarm Disaster. There's a lot building to that reveal, but I want to pick out two parts again. At the end of Chapter 2, Nikador loses their name, and later their own language, after contacting the Black Tide. As I've written in 3.0, confirmed Phainon isn't his real name and he'd lost everything in his youth. Perhaps his lack of name is because he too touched the Black Tide at one point. Maybe his memories of his old home were distorted and that's why no one else can find it. Second, the passage describing Nikador's death uses superscript to tell the same story in the past and future, the same way Elegy speaks. This is a hint finality may be involved too. At the start of 3.0, Black Swan says Amphoreus is affected by fate, but lists Enigmata as a possible third path. At the moment, I think there's a 20% chance of the third path being finality. Now I'll rapid fire some smaller points of note. Despite the Dawn device blotting out the stars, people are still buying star charts. If I had to guess, these are people convinced they can pass real prophecies after learning of their corruption. One book claims to be a guide on stargazing during the day. Dromases seem to have sensed either Giurios' reawakening or death in the past. Their core flame was returned, so I'm leaning towards the latter. Speaking of, we know they were born in the era Creatura and birthed Phagusa and Aquila in the following era Luminosa. Creatura implies a lot of monsters and Luminosa is obviously a reference to Aquila being the sun, so I assume these are some of the earliest eras. However, the life edition of Amphoreus' calendar states Aquila was active in era Creatura instead. Perhaps Aquila lit up the sky early in life and thus the era changed. This is another example of erudition or enigmatus tampering, or simply an example of myths being told differently by different people. After them came Era Bellica, or the era of warfare, and Era Chrysia, the Golden Age. Then Erasus, meaning rose in Latin, and erasure elsewhere, so presumably when the Black Tide appeared. This may be the current era, but the ideal future era is Era Nova. Era Bellica included the year 2600, and Amphoreus is currently shy of 5,000 years old. Apparently Phagusa followers can not only talk to water but have it talk back to them, so I look forward to meeting that Chrysos heir. Perhaps they'll explain why the basin in the vortex of Genesis can talk. There's a story about Giurios outweighing Talenton's core flame with a handful of wheat, which represented humanity's history, which is referenced in the main story when Dan Hong pulls a similar stunt with March's camera. Now, if you'll allow me some baseless speculation about Cyrene, Oronex calls for Mother when Trailblazer takes a photo of them and sends them to a memory of the Stellaron hunters. I think this was a point when the hunters passed by Amphoreus or Cyrene herself, whether they understood it or not. Cyrene has golden blood in the flashback at the end of the story, so I think she may be the Titan's creator somehow. As far as we know, the heirs don't literally have golden blood, so she likely isn't one of them. Furthermore, Ether in the Khanria Discord noted a similarity between the sword wielded by the masked man in the mythology trailer and the sword that killed Cyrene, implying he's related to whoever did it or did so himself. Myday and Tribi implied Phainon was barely keeping his composure, so if the sword connection is valid, I am very eager to see them meet, assuming that flashback was reliable. As for Cyrene herself, Mem shares her VAs in all languages, and they start speaking full sentences at the end of 3.0. When Elysia died in Honkai Impact, she rebuilt herself around a familiar called Elf Elysia. I suspect something similar will happen here. And we're done. I have a lot of theories, but these are my initial takeaways after a week in Amphoreus. Perhaps abridging the bonus lore like this will help you with your own theories, though I personally am fairly confident in saying Amphoreus is a simulation. It's the only way to explain the visuals I explained earlier, as well as oddities like Amphorean speaking the same language as the Expressors and having the same technology. Perhaps Nous hid all knowledge of the outside world to not disturb their experiment. Maybe Mythos got involved. That part remains to be seen. Regardless, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to help the channel, and have a great day.